Alright, today I'm going to talk about troops, types, and genres. And this is my first episode covering Game of War, so if it goes well, there will be more as the game continuously changes and people have to adapt to those changes. Uh, Today, we're going to go over both troops and genres, like I said, and why these things matter. First off, let's go over the what types. And we all know the three basic types if you played the game at all, and those are infantry, ranged, and cav. To avoid confusion for this video, I'm going to refer to these as types. This is the most basic separation of troops, and it was the first separation of troops introduced when the game began. And this is currently what is used in all missile types. So you have a infantry missile type, you have a cav missile type, you have a ranged missile type, etc., etc. Additionally, if you've played for the game for any significant amount of time, you will have seen the graphic that I'm about to put up. This explains that ranged have an advantage over infantry, that cav have an advantage over ranged, and finally infantry have an advantage over cav. Now, this is a critical aspect of the game, and understanding this relationship is vital to defending and attacking in the game. From what most tests can tell, there is no significant difference in the advantages or disadvantages between the different troop types. Meaning, you will not kill more cav on an infantry versus cav combat than you do infantry on a range versus infantry combat. All things being equal, you will kill roughly about the same amount. So that is types. So what the hell is genres? Well, that's a good question, and the purpose of this video. And I use the word genres to describe regular troops, strategic troops, and wild troops. Again, if you played the game long enough, you will have seen a graphic that is very similar to the type graphic from before, where strategic has an advantage over regular, wild has an advantage over strat, and finally regular have an advantage over wild. Now this is also a critical aspect of the game, but possibly the least understood, and because these advantages are not static, nor are they balanced. And the advantage that strat have over regular troops is significantly less than the advantage that wild troops have over strat, and regular troops have over wild is even greater than that. MZ has announced that these genres do have static advantage modifiers over each other. But this is where it becomes misunderstood because of hidden stats. And now we move to the actual heart of why we need this video. Hidden stats are the stats that increase each genre of troop type uh, based on the type of troop or type of genre they actually are. And there are some guessing games, but MZ has actually stated, at least for wild troops, that there are hidden stats and what they are. So we can derive, based on things that they've said in the past, what these hidden stats are. We just don't know how big they are, but we can guess that they are significant, at least a +1 to each stat, if not maybe +2, +3. Regular troops gain hidden stats in defense and in health, and that's why this genre of troops is always able to seem to take a beating, and why traps love to stay heavy on them, and why they're great for defense. Strategic troops gain hidden stats in attack and defense. And for those who have played the game long enough to remember, strategic troops were vital for holding the Wonder simply because, combined with the increased attack, the genre advantage over regular troops, you would just win against any opponent who tried to use regulars. Wild troops gain an attack and health bonus. And because of the way the meta game is, at the time when wild troops were first came out, it was so bent towards defense debuff. These hidden stats made wild troops the single most powerful troop genre that there was for a while. And they still are very powerful, but not absolutely powerful. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, because of the focus on defense debuff and the significant increase in flattening of attack percentage, this has created imbalance in the genres. The advantage that strategic have over over regular troops has become almost insignificant because of attack debuff and the increased health that regular troops have. The advantages that wilds have over strategic become incredibly high because of the additional attack that wilds have, and because defense debuff is so high and focused on now, that just through the meta game, strategic have a disadvantage, almost double what it should have been or should be versus wild troops. And even though health is not a attack stat, it does help with combat value and increases the combat value of the troop. And then, of course, advantages that regular troops have over wilds become very high. Like I said before, the focus on defense debuff is there, so when somebody adds defense increase and a health increase with the flattening of attack percentages, and that's key, the flattening of attack percentage, it no longer behooves you to attack with one troop or the other in some scenarios because of the flattening of attack. It behooves you to actually use regular because the difference between 1.8 billion attack and 1.79 billion attack is almost next to nothing. And that's really all you're gaining now with the different advantages of attack. But you're gaining a lot of health that offsets that with both the wild and the regular troops. And the final advantage that has emerged when genres are mixed evenly, we're seeing that strategic troops are still at a huge disadvantage. And this is largely, like I said, because of the huge defense debuff meta. And as defense debuff becomes more of a thing, this will increase. And strategic troops are almost useless now, but it's not, I wouldn't get rid of them quite yet. So this brings us to tactics, and I'm only going to go over 3 real quick tactics in this video, and we can go over more in subsequent videos if we need to, if you want. A common tactic right now in the metagame is to keep a heavy dose of regular troops to guard your stronghold. And the problem with that now is that an attacker has so much more attack than previously that you need more and more troops to stop the onslaught. And to do that, if you keep so heavy in regular troops, you end up hurting yourself because of the imbalance of the troops, and you can start sending regular troops against you and strategic troops against you, and actually pull out that advantage and cause you to burn where you normally probably wouldn't, versus like an even strike or a wild strike or anything like that. So to combat this, some players have been keeping the regular troops and their wild troops even, and dropping their strategic troops lower to combat uneven attack versus defense by using the increased health of both regular and wild genres. Now this is a great tactic since healthy buff really isn't a thing that most people will have nowadays, especially attacking you with your hero there. Healthy buff just gets thrown off the board because you need so much defense. Well, the problem with this is that an attacker, if an attacker can get a report on you either through a previous hit or a scout, they can use regular troops against you and actually gain an advantage. And how they gain the advantage is if they send regular troops versus you, you're defending, since you've taken strategic troops pretty much out of the picture, you're defending with regular troops and wild troops only because of the way combat works. So regular troops versus regular troops have 0 advantage, 0 disadvantage. But regular troops versus wild troops has you have 0 advantage defending and a huge disadvantage being attacked. And the reason that this is a real problem is because the way combat works and the flat attack and the distribution of damage to the highest number of troops first uh, it will cause you to burn when you might not have otherwise burned, or if you were still going to burn, you're going to burn a lot worse now. And this is a good way to combat this type of tactic. Now, the last tactic, and the tactic that I suggest doing, especially for you newbies, uh, is to keep your troops even with both type and genre. This gives your attacker no significant advantage when attacking you. Likewise, when you are attacking, the first attack should be flat. Now, you're going to be using a missile most likely, so you should use flat genre attacks in your missile setup, at least for the first strike. Now, what this will do is it will combat any kind of genre imbalance that the defender has, and will give you a good even playing field to play with. So if you were going to burn them with all strat, you'll still burn them most likely with an even. You just won't burn them as bad. But that'll give you a report so that you can choose and swap your tactic at that point. But this has been Troops and Genres. If you have any questions that I didn't cover, please ask. One of the biggest things that I want to do with this kind of series is go over how Game of War actually affects you and things that you can do. But right now, troop genres and troop types seem to be the biggest confusion, and I hope I've helped you. If not, please send me a question in the comments. You can always hit me up on Twitter, Dees23, and just see me in game. All right, thank you very much, and keep burning those strongholds.